Right, so as some of my regular viewers will know, due to my coverage of this topic, north of Tyne Metro Mayor Jamie Driscoll, despite being an incumbent Labour mayor who has done an excellent job in post, had been blocked by the Starmer Labour machine for not being a good enough candidate. And what this actually boiled down to was Starmer wanting to get rid of another rotten leftie, whether they were good at the job or not, because it's not about competence, it's about obedience in this regime. And if they aren't Team Keith, if they're not Keithy enough, then they're no longer good enough for Labour. For as much as Starmer has overseen a purge of ordinary members, it's been the senseless purging of elected officials that has made the headlines most of all, that has incensed voters and Labour members still hanging in there. That choice is being taken away from them. That democracy within the party only extends as far as choosing between several leadership-approved options, not who they might want themselves. Starmer wants nobody that's able to challenge him. Therefore, in disgust at these acts, it's perhaps of little wonder that as soon as Driscoll announced his intention to stand as an independent and quitting the Labour Party over it, and would indeed do so, should he make £25,000 of his £150,000 campaign kitty target by the end of August, then he would indeed stand. Well, he didn't need to sell himself so short, as it turned out, as he made that initial £25,000 target in less than 2 hours, never mind by the end of August. Ironically, at time of writing, he only needs around £25,000 more now to achieve that full campaign target of £150,000. And tomorrow, it'll be 2 weeks since he launched his crowdfunder for that. So wouldn't it be lovely for him to hit that target tomorrow? However, he's not alone in going it alone, now having come from the Labour Party and now perhaps standing as an independent, as another victim of the Starmer regime has now also mooted her potential intention to stand again. Emma Dent Coad is the former MP for Kensington, a seat the Tories had always held until Labour took it in the 2017 general election. For the first time ever, one of the first new seats won by Labour since the Blair era, in fact. A seat Labour had never won, like I said. But of course, we can't have people referring to Corbyn and his socialist sort as having been by any means successful. Though to put this down to Corbyn would be to sell Emma Dent Coad herself massively short. Her time as an MP was marked by the Grenfell Tower fire, which broke out the week after the 2017 general election was held. So she was thrown right in at the deep end right from the beginning. And where returning Prime Minister Theresa May wasn't seen for dust at the time, Coad and Corbyn and other Labour MPs were there at the scene, being there for ordinary people back when the Labour Party actually stood by ordinary people. Emma Dent Coad's tenure in office was marked by her campaigning for the support for the families of the victims of that fire, holding to account those responsible for it, not merely the manufacturers and the owners of the buildings, but attacking the appalling legislation that has seen so many buildings as other potential Grenfells, many still sadly covered in the same cladding that caused that fire to this day. She became synonymous with the fight for justice and has continued to be outspoken on this, even after she sadly lost her seat in the following 2019 general election, losing by just 150 votes to another Tory drone in what has for a long time been regarded as a largely safe Tory seat. Despite her widely respected and liked reputation in Kensington for her work, though, Starmer can't bring himself to have lefties standing, and therefore he blocked her candidacy for the seat again back in October of last year. The only Labour candidate to ever win that seat, who has won the respect of the community for her work on Grenfell and, of course, other issues besides that affecting people in Tory Britain, poverty, homelessness, hunger, and more. And Starmer blocked her because basically he doesn't like her. That's all most of the blocking comes down to. Again, trade union backing for her was there. Her experience and knowledge of the area after 16 years of being a councillor in the borough are invaluable, as are the relationships she has built up in that community. And in fact, that was her warning to the Labour leadership upon finding out she had been rejected. Starmer's Labour will not find it easy to win the trust of the community. Of course, the Labour Party under Team Keith attempted to justify this decision. And this just goes to show how insultingly shallow they actually are. A dossier on Emma Dent Coad had apparently been drawn up. The Labour Party Governance and Legal Unit love a good dossier, don't they? Well, this will tickle you no end. She was accused of being too anti-Tory, being Labour. She was accused of not being suitably grovelling and cap-doffing towards the royal family, God forbid. She was held accountable for the heinous crime of smiling when someone once criticised the exalted leader, Sir Keir Starmer, and was accused of attending a meeting of the proscribed group Socialist Appeal. It turns out she'd actually attended an event by Stop the War, so it wasn't even accurate. However, attending a march, as it was, of this group, not at the time banned, not sure they even are now, actually, was still decided to be incompatible with the aims and views of Starmer's Labour. Another warmonger in the making, old Keith then, it'd seem, wouldn't it? She was also ruled out for chairing an online event where an unseen member of the meeting she had never heard of and had never met, and who had already been suspended, happened to be present. It's an insult, it's a farce, and it once again removes the option of voting for a socialist from ordinary people, ordinary voters, a person who has communal links to the area she is represented from, being allowed to represent them as an MP once more, on the basis of nothing but petty factionalism. By April of this year, she'd had enough, and she quit the Labour Party herself, now sitting once again on Kensington and Chelsea Council as an independent. Was up until then leader of the Labour group, though. She said at the time, "I'm not leaving the party has left me. It is unrecognisable." And I totally associate myself with that comment. I left Labour for exactly the same reason. It no longer represents my values, my belief that it was the way forward for change in this country. Now it represents the exact opposite of that. Under Starmer, it is now just another Tory party, and I'll treat it and him with the disdain and disgust that deserves until it changes its ways and remembers it's supposed to represent ordinary working class people in this country. But I won't be holding my breath that that's going to happen. Emma Dent Coad lasted longer than I did, to her credit, but the suspension of Diane Abbott, which remains in place still, was the last straw for her. So that brings us to the here and now. Unlike Driscoll, Emma Dent Coad hasn't instigated this herself. Rather, someone who would really, really quite like her to run has begun a crowdfunder for her on her behalf. She's asked constantly, will she run again as an independent? And despite having no original intention to do so, the community around her, who she has forged these links with, want her to. She's put it to them, so she's put it to the rest of us actually via this crowdfunder, via a recorded message she agreed to put on it, that if she reaches the target that's been set at the moment, £30,000, she will seriously consider running again herself. And if she doesn't, if the money isn't raised, well, the monies that are raised will go to the local communities instead. Strikes me as an opportunity on two fronts here. Get a campaign going for an independent candidate that we know is worth her weight in gold, with both reputation and clout in the area, to run for her seat once more on the one hand, and on the other hand to give Starmer regime a bloody nose with the other by falling behind the candidate the people there want, rather than another faceless drone who just votes however Keith tells them to, a candidate he wants. The crowdfunder launched late last night, and she's already reached nearly £3,500 by the time of writing. So we can very easily see her reach limit. And what a message that would convey to her if she reaches that target in record time, as quickly as possible. So please consider sending a donation to that campaign, and also Jamie Driscoll's too. Let's try and get him over the line this weekend. That would be very nice as well. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. New content out daily. Meanwhile, here's the latest on the Driscoll campaign as a catch-up on that story. Hundreds of other videos to peruse besides, and I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.